Kol Nidrei Vesorei Ushevuei Vacharomei Vekoinomei Vekinusei
Okay. Whoever was mishtatef with the Rosh Hashanah present, I appreciate it. I don't know who was mishtatef. Pesach, who's mishtatef? Anybody here? The whole shir, the shir. Yishkoyach, thank you. It was very much appreciated. Okay, this is Erev Yom Kippur almost. Erev Yom Kippur. So what's the message of Yom Kippur? So I'm not going to explain it to you. I want to let a former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, explain it to you. There's a conservative rabbi, you don't know what Reconstructionist is. It's a break off of conservatism. So there's a conservative rabbi called Rabbi Michael Paley. And he spoke to Rabbi, you've heard of Y.Y. Jacobson? Yeah, so he spoke to Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. And he told him what happened. If you know the story of Bill Clinton, it was the end of 1998, and Bill Clinton was going through a very hard time. He came close to being impeached because of certain ma'asim tovim, certain activities that he did, which were not they're not appropriate to mention a holy shir like this.
And they say Trump is no good. He's worse than Trump.
And he did certain great deeds involving a certain Rebbetzin Lewinsky. Now, if you remember the end of 1998, it was beginning 99. So Bill Clinton, he went to Cincinnati. He wanted to have a meeting with clergy. It's one of the official exercises that he did. And so he had all the clergy there. He had the Christians, and he had Muslims and Buddhists, and he had Jews also. And who was the Jewish clergy? This Rabbi Michael Paley. And he shared his story, and he says, this Rabbi Paley says, I decided, you know how it is with clergy and the president, it's the picture, right? The photo op, right? He comes over to you, you exchange a few nice words, you smile, shake hands, you get a picture, it goes viral, and for 3 moments you feel on top of the world. You have a picture with the President of the United States. I decided I'm not one of these guys. I'm going to meet the President. I don't want just a handshake and a picture. I'm actually going to tell him a meaningful message. I'm a rabbi, and it's my job to telling him a meaningful message. So as Bill Clinton walks by, and he shakes my hand, and I introduce myself. So I say, Mr. President, it's time for you to do tshuva. Now, tshuva is a Hebrew word, so he's about to explain tshuva means repentance. He wants to explain to the President of the United States what the word tshuva means. But as he's trying to continue, the President interrupts me, and he says, Rabbi Paley, that's so interesting. But I have a question. When you speak to me about doing tshuva, Do you mean tshuva from the perspective of Rabbi Soloveitchik? Or do you mean tshuva from the perspective of Rabbi Kook? Which tshuva do you mean? So that was Rabbi YY's response. Come on, this didn't happen. This is fictional. He says, no, I swear to you, it's true. So what did you do when he asked you that question? He says, I almost fainted. I said to myself, first of all, how in the world do you know about Rabbi Soloveitchik and Rabbi Kook? Second of all, how in the world do you know the difference between the tshuva of Rabbi Soloveitchik and the tshuva of Rabbi Kook? And third of all, you know more about tshuva than 98% of the Jews in the United States. That's pretty good, Mr. President. But still, you got to do tshuva. But you know a lot about tshuva. So we have to take a little break over here. Take a little break over here. Now, which rabbi? Who are these rabbis that he's talking about? Now, Rav Soloveitchik, we're Israelis, so we didn't have that much experience with him. But the Americans, he was the grandson of Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim had two sons, Reb Moshe and Reb Yitzchak. Yitzchak was the Yitzchak Zev. He was the Brisker Rav. So everybody knows huh? Yeah. So everybody knows about the Brisker Rav. He had a brother, Reb Moshe, who eventually made it to New York. And Reb Moshe had a son called Yoshe Ber, named after the Beis Halevi. Reb Chaim's father was the Beis Halevi. Then you have Chaim Brisker. Then you have his grandson in New York, in Boston. He became a Rav in Boston. And he was named after his grandfather. So in Hebrew, it's Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik. Everybody called him Yoshe Ber. It's like a Yiddish shortening, of the word Yosef Dov. Dov is bear in Yiddish. And instead of Yosef, they called Yoshe Ber. That's the nickname, Yoshe Ber. JB. JB. Everybody called him JB. And he eventually, after his father died, Reb Moshe died, he became the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University. He was stemmed from the famous Soloveitchik dynasty, and he was the epitome in his style of learning of the Lithuanian deep analytic. It's based on Rambams and diukim in the Rambams and ripping apart and putting back together again. It's very, very strong in Rambams. Rav Kook Rav Soloveitchik passed away in 1993. Rav Kook, I think, passed away in 1935. He was the first chief rabbi of Palestine. They made him chief rabbi of Palestine from the new yishuv that started then, when the Zionists started moving into Eretz Yisrael. It was still called Palestine underneath the British, and he was the chief rabbi, and he was also a Lithuanian. He was call him a graduate. He had learned in the famous Volozhin yeshiva. Volozhin was like the mother of all yeshivas in Europe, Lithuanian yeshivas. So he knew all about the Litvisha, the Lithuanian, the Litvisha, style of learning, but he had a kanech on it. He was different. He had, besides being a great Rosh Yeshiva, he was also a poet. He was a philosopher, and he was a mystic. He was very, very deep into Kabbalah and to Hasidus and Machshava. He's very, very emotional. His style is a very emotional style, and he talks with Hasidus and Kabbalah and Machshava, and they talk about tshuva in two different ways. For Rabbi Soloveitchik, the primary component of true repentance is accountability. Very, very, very organized. Is very organized and structured. There's accountability, remorse, there's confession, accepting to change, resolving to change your behavior in the future is very halachic, systematic, and rigorous. That's the style of J.B. They took he had a lot of shmuzim on Yomim Neroyim, so one of his Talmidim compiled them and made a whole sefer hatshuva of Soloveitchik. Accepting responsibility, expressing regret internally, but also verbally, a resolution for the future, changing your behavior. The system of tshuva in Jewish law, as the Rambam, he followed the Rambam very, very strictly on tshuva. Chet, sin, has two aspects according to Rav Soloveitchik. There's a sin which necessitates punishment. If you do a sin, you get punished. And it creates, secondly, a stain. It creates a stain on the soul, on the neshama. And his personality, halacha personality changes. So you need kapara, atonement, to atone yourself from the sin. And you need tahara to purify yourself, to eradicate the stain. Don't ask Hashem just for forgiveness, but you have to ask for tahara, be purified, tahareni. You need a kapara, kapel no, and also tahareni. That's Rav Soloveitchik. Very, very rigorous and a strict and very qualified and quantified structure of how to do tshuva and what the process of tshuva is. For Rabbi Kook, the focus of tshuva is different. Now, I'm not saying one against the other. When I say he says tshuva means this, he says tshuva means that. Tshuva means all those things. Like all of Torah, it depends how you hit it. There's shivim panim l'Torah, 70 faces to the Torah. It depends how you hit it. You can hit it this way, you can hit it that way, and they're all true. They all have different aspects and different ways of analyzing it. For Rabbi Kook, the focus of tshuva is a different twist, but he takes on more of the Baal Shem Tov and the Chasidus. Tshuva is return. What's the word tshuva mean? Tshuva means return. Come back. Come back to what? So the way Rav Kook learned, according to, I'm not a Bucky in Rav Kook, so if I make any mistakes, please forgive me. Anybody out there listening and says I'm not delineating exactly what Rav Kook says properly, I apologize because I don't. I'm reading from one person's take on Rav Kook. Could be it's not accurate. I'm not well versed in Rav Kook. Tshuva is returning to the untainted self, to you. Come back to you. You, in your deep recesses, in the core. The core self has never been alienated from the truth. The core is still there. The kernel of your soul, of your neshama, is still there. We say every morning, Elokai neshama shenasato bi tahirihi. Every day, every morning, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives back your neshama, and it's tahira, the same neshama that you were born with. The neshama is tahirihi. Ata barasa ata yitzarta ata yifachtabi. This neshama is always there, but it gets alienated from the truth. It gets tainted. It gets stained. But the core soul is still there. And what is the core soul? The neshama. The neshama is a chelik elokai. It's a fragment of divinity. There's a spark of divinity in everybody's neshama. And therefore sin is basically an aberration of your internal spiritual chemistry. You have to just get rid of the sin and return to your soul and return to your real being. Tshuva means reclaiming who you always were, discovering the positive core, rediscovering yourself, the core that was never tainted, it was never tarnished, re-embracing that which was never detached or alienated. Okay, that in a nutshell, it's not It's not accurate. It's not accurate because I looked around for Rav Soloveitchik, and he also talks about returning to yourself. So it's not exact. It's sort of like, it's not exactly true what this picture of the difference between Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Kook. But for the purposes of this talk, it'll be good enough. There are two different aspects. There's the rigorous analysis, rigorous analysis, the steps to do tshuva, which is very, very halachic, and it seems dry when you read the Rambam, and when you read, Rabbeinu Yonah, it seems very, very dry. It's just like halachas. You have to do this. You have to do tshuva. You have to do a vidoy, and you have to have remorse, and you have to feel bad, and you have to change your ways, and you have to decide. And we have all the al-chetz on Rosh Hashanah. We have on Yom Kippur. We have all the al-chet for this sin, and al-chet for that sin. Rav Kook is accenting a different aspect of tshuva. He's accenting, come back. Come back. You were once pure. Come back. That's the difference, l'chayra, in what was meant by the difference between Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Kook. So President Clinton wants to know, which tshuva does Rabbi Paley mean? Do you mean the tshuva of Rav Soloveitchik, or do you mean the tshuva of Rav Kook? So Michael Paley was very clever. He says, Mr. President, of course, the tshuva of Rav Kook. So Clinton says, that's interesting. Most people I speak to believe I have to do the tshuva of Rabbi Soloveitchik, not the tshuva of Rav Kook. So Michael Paley says, but I say you should do the tshuva of Rabbi Kook. Oh, if so, we have to have a little talk. If that's what you believe, we should talk. So after the official meeting with the clergy and the speeches and whatever it was, and then the photographs, the president asked him to step aside. They went into a side room and they spent some time conversing privately about how Yiddishkeit, Judaism, looks at tshuva. So, which is it? The answer is both. It's called Yomim Neroyim. If you come, again, take it, simplicity. Take it on a simple level. It's called Yomim Neroyim. There's awe, days of awe. It's fear, because we've done chet. Nobody's perfect. We've strayed from the ways that we're supposed to be. We've gathered a lot of dirt on our neshamas, and therefore there's punishment. We talk about Unisana Taikif, and all the different, our future is being decided on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. All the different calamities that might take place, all the different occurrences, good and bad. Sifrei Chaim and Sifrei Mesim, the book of the living, the book of the dead, the book of the Tzaddikim, the book of the Rishoyim. It's scary. It's very scary. But on the other hand, it's an opportunity to come back, to discover ourselves, and to figure out who we are. Ultimately, we all have to recognize that we were put into this world with a purpose. We are ambassadors. We are shluchim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who am I? Who am I? I'm a shliach. I'm a representative. I'm a company representative of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Each one of us was given a tafkid. Each one of us was given a tafkid. And that's the din of Rosh Hashanah. Din of Rosh Hashanah, and now Yom Kippur, is, have you fulfilled your tafkid? You were born You were born, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you certain talents, certain abilities, certain capabilities that enable you to fulfill your tafkid in this world. I've told you before, the Goyin says, when there were Nevi'im, a person could go to a Navi, and the Navi would look into him, he would see the essence of his neshama, and he would say, you were brought into this world to do this. This is your job in this world. Besides all the mitzvahs, we all have to do the mitzvahs. There's two aspects of Yiddishkeit. There's the aspect of Yiddishkeit of doing all the mitzvahs, right? You have to do the Taryag mitzvahs, not do the Averas, and you gain schusim, and you try to get rid of your Averas, which are detriments. But there's another issue. You were put here with a certain goal to make your impact on Olam Hazeh, to make your impact on the people around you, and on yourself, and on the world. That's your tafkid, that's your job. You're an ambassador. Now, we don't have Nevi'im anymore, the Vilna Gaon says, so you can't know your real tafkid. But you can feel it, with the direction that HaKadosh Baruch Hu directs you. Slowly, He directs you puts you in a certain situation, with your parents, and with your community, and with your neighbors, and with your temperament. All these things you feel a push, you feel a pull in a certain way. Some people are askonim; they have to they have to create organizations. Other people are great teachers. Other people are they're chazonim. Other people are great educators. Other people are great scholars. Other people are great businessmen. They have to make their impact on business. They feel that's their tafkid in life, to make kosher business and create jobs for Yiddish people. There's a very interesting Chidush Yarim. The Chidush Yarim talks about in Ne'ilah. After a whole day, Mincha and Erev Yom Kippur, Ma'ariv, Shacharis, Musaf, Mincha again. Then we get to Ne'ilah at the end of Yom Kippur. It's late. We don't have time for all the Al-Chetz. So we leave out all the Al-Chetz. We do a Shamnu, but you'll find that the Al-Chetz are missing from Ne'ilah because we don't have time. So we do a shortened version. Ata noisen yad l'poishim. Kodesh Baruch Hu, you give your hand out, you stretch your hand out to the poishim. Your mincha peshuta l'kabel shovim. Your right hand is stretched out to receive all the people doing tshuva. But lamdeinu Hashem Elokeinu lisvados lefanecha kol avonosenu. And then we don't do vidui. He said, teach us how to do vidui, and then we don't do vidui. But we do vidui. We confess to one sin. There's one sin, one avera that we confess to in the Ne'ilah Ata Noisen Yad L'Poishim. What is that one sin? L'man nechtal mi oishik yodeinu. Geneva. Geneva is the only one mentioned here. And it must be so important that it's mentioned twice. At the beginning of Ata Noisen, it says, L'man nechtal mi oishik yodeinu. And then it says again in the next paragraph, Ata hivdalta enosh miroish, v'titan lanu Hashem Elokeinu b'avos Yom Kippurim hazeh, l'man nechtal mi oishik yodeinu v'noshu v'elecha, l'asos chukei ritzonecha. Oishik yodeinu, Geneva, theft. We pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He should help us stop stealing. This is the only avera that we mentioned in these last two paragraphs of Ne'ilah. So the Chidush Yarim asked the question, that's the crime that every man, woman, and child in Klal Yisrael has to confess every year? That we're a bunch of ganovim? Huh? We're a bunch of ganovim? That's Klal Yisrael? We're a bunch of thieves? What's happening here in Nila? So Rabbi Zev Leff gave a mushal to this. You don't have it here in Eretz Yisrael, but you have it in America. In America, you have sports teams and big manufacturing companies, and they're looking for talent. So they go to the high schools, and they go to the senior class. As the senior class in the secular high schools, they're deciding where they're going to go next year, which college they're going to go to, what profession they're going to eke out for themselves. So everybody's looking for talent. You got the sports teams, the football teams, and the baseball teams, and the basketball teams. They're looking for good players that are going to go into the major leagues, and and so they hunt. They have headhunters looking for good talent. Then you got the engineering companies. So let's focus on the engineering companies as an example. You have a big engineering company, and they're looking for good talent, people with good brains, very creative. So they go to the senior class, look for somebody who's very good, who's tops in science and math, and he's also artistic, so he's creative. That's a fantastic combination for engineering, right? Math and creativity. Very good. And they go to him, and they feel that he would be an asset to their firm. So they go over to these youngsters and they say, if you would take engineering in college, you would be a very fine engineer. We are willing to invest in you if you will commit that when you graduate, you will come join our firm and work for 5 years. We are willing to pay your entire tuition, room and board, and give you spending money until you get that diploma in engineering. And then you come to work for us for 5 years. And that way we're guaranteed very nice, young, talented engineers. Sounds reasonable? He gets a free, fully paid for college education. The fellow says, that sounds great, right? People like to take things which are free, right? 5 years is not that long a time. So he signs on the dotted line, he studies, he gets his degree, and in the end he comes and works for the firm. And every day he goes into his office and he sits at his desk, but instead of working on the projects that the firm has given him, he sits and plays computer games. The whole day, entire day, he's just sitting, playing games. What is he guilty of? He's a ganav. He's a ganav. He didn't hand over the goods. He signed a deal. His tuition is going to be fully paid for on condition that he works for the firm for 5 years. He's not working for the firm, so give back all the entire tuition. He's a ganav. He was expected to work for the firm, but he's not doing anything for the firm. That's a ganav. Says the Chedushei Arim, the Rebbeinu Shalom invested in us a lot more than money. He gave you a body, he gave you a neshama, he gave you talents. Everybody here is talented. You're all talented in each in your own way. You have your capabilities. You have your abilities. You have everything. You have material possessions. You have things that Kosh Baruch Hu gave you. All he wants to see is a proper return on his investment. And he wants us to use the things that he has given us for Avodas Hashem. That's called his service, Avodas Hashem. So we come to Ne'ilah, and we look back over the year, and we see that not only are we not using our talents and our possessions for the Rebbeinu Shalom, the things the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us in his service, but we're using them for the competition. We're using things for the Yetzer Hara. So we're all a bunch of ganovim. And that's the bottom line of Nila. If you don't use what Kodesh Baruch Hu gave you for avodas Hashem, you're a ganav. And that's the bottom line. And that's the klolius dika vidoy of Ne'ilah. So we promised the Rebbeinu Shalom this coming year we're going to stop stealing. We're going to use the talents, the abilities and capabilities and material possessions that He gave us for avodas Hashem and give Him a return for His investments. So Yom Kippur is a time to wake up, because Baruch Hu wants to see a return. He wants to see Ma'aseh Ishuv Kudasai. Ma'aseh Ishuv Kudasai. Everybody has a Pekida. Everybody has a Tafkid. Because Baruch Hu wants to see that you're using your Tafkid. That's one type of tshuva. That's one type of tshuva. I look at it slightly different. I have another take on it. Another take on it. We were given a job, somehow or other. We're like people in a spaceship. Everybody, so many people have a complaint. So many mitzvahs, so many aveiros we have to be careful of. It's so complicated. Why does it have to be so complicated? Why couldn't the Kodesh Baruch Hu make it easier? So, have you ever been in the cockpit of a jet, 747, and you got hundreds and hundreds of dials and switches, and right, and it's just all over the place, the dials and switches, and that's in the cockpit of a 747. I can just imagine what the cockpit of a spaceship is. Is probably 5 times the amount of dials, and everything has to be exact. Every dial is a different aspect of different part of the vehicle that has to be exact, and it has to be on target, and it has to be operating properly. And if it's off by 0.1%, the spaceship's going to veer. They had a problem with one of the rockets they sent to Mars, and it missed because there was discrepancy between the Americans and the French in the way they made their computer programs, and therefore the computer program was off by a little bit. So instead of going, straight on the path to Mars, it veered left and missed it. One little centimeter over here. Once you get out there, 100 million miles away, you're already way off target. So we get off target. We're in a spaceship going through our life. That's what all these aveiros are. We're a spaceship. Kodesh Baruch Hu put us in charge of the spaceship called you. And we have to keep it on track. And why are there so many mitzvahs? Just like one little discrepancy in any of the dials or the switches in that Boeing 747 or that spaceship would be off. You got a couple of what do you call them? These guys went up there. The astronauts. There are 2 astronauts. They're stuck in space because there's a little. Somebody didn't do the welding properly or something. Something came off, so therefore they had a gas leak, and they couldn't get. They don't know how to fix it, so they're waiting. They sent a rocket up to get them, and the rocket couldn't match up. So for the spaceship, the spacesuits that they had, the spacesuits that they had, wouldn't fit through the hole because they weren't matched up properly. Everything's got to match up properly, exactly. They have to send another one up. They're stuck up there for weeks now. They can't get down because it doesn't match. We're here in this world in our vehicle called you, and we're trying to get to a destination, which is Olam Haba. And if we veer off any little bit, so we're not going to get it, or we're going to get there, we're going to miss the target, or we're going to be miles away from the target, and not in the proper place in Olam Haba. Therefore, we have to do. That's why we say all the al-chetz, and that's why the mitzvahs. There's so many mitzvahs, and they're so fine-tuned, because that's exactly what's necessary to get us to Olam Haba. There's another aspect. There's another aspect of tshuva. So we said before, according to what he claims Rav Kook is saying, again, I don't take responsibility for what he says Rav Kook is saying, you have to come back to yourself. I want to say more than that. You have to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shuva Yisrael el Hashem Elokeichem. Come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we're all a chelik of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Famous song, Yisroel v'yaraisa v'kutshabrichu chadu. Our neshama is a chelik elokai. So we have to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tshuva to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All Yidden feel deep down within themselves a yearning to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though they're very, very far and distant. There was a chazan, there's a chazan, Tzadok Greenwald, and he's a very, very fine chazan, and he lives in Eretz Yisrael, and he went to Germany for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and he's the chazan in the great synagogue of Frankfurt, and he always feels he feels this is meaningful for him, because his parents were Nitzuli Shoah, they were Holocaust survivors. So here is Germany, the Rishonim that tried to wipe out Yiddishkeit, and now he's returning to Frankfurt, to the one shul that they didn't get at Kristallnacht, a great shul. For some reason they left standing, and it didn't get destroyed during Kristallnacht. And it's a giant shul. And in Yom Kippur, everybody comes to Yom Kippur. It's the most amazing thing. Everybody comes. Look what's going on in Tel Aviv. They want to go to Yom Kippur. They want to go to Kol Nidrei. There's something about Kol Nidrei, Yom Kippur and Kol Nidrei. It attracts all Jews. Attracts all Jews. And on Yom Kippur night, there are 2,000 people in that shul. It's a giant shul. 2,000 people. So it was Motzi Yom Kippur. He had just, for a chazan, Motzi Yom Kippur is very, very hard. He did Kol Nidrei, Ma'ariv, Shacharis, Musaf, Mincha, Ne'ilah, and all by himself. He didn't have any, most of the shuls that we have, they have they switch off. They have two different chazanim, like one chazan for Shacharis, and then the good chazan for Musaf, and then another chazan, a lower class chazan for Mincha, and then, the Nilas is the top chazan. They keep on switching off. They have two chazanim, yeah. But here he did the whole thing. It was a one-man show, and he's got to sing, and his voice. He was this without eating, without drinking, and his voice was parched. I mean, he was dry. It's after Yom Kippur, and he's totally wiped out, and he's looking forward to getting back to his hotel room, breaking the fast, having a glass of cold water, and whatever he had prepared for the motzi tainus to eat. He says, so afterwards, he says, but first he had to rest a few minutes. So he sat down and rested a few minutes. He had to calm down. Then I'll walk to my hotel. I'll get something to eat. By the time he was done, so all the 2,000 people had left. All the 2,000 people have left. They were breaking their fast. The janitor had finished cleaning up. He was turning out the lights. Only a few lights were left. The front door was locked. Okay, the security guards were gone. So he walked out the side door. That's the only door that was open, that was still available for him to get out. So he looks around and he can see from the side door, he can see the front gate, and he sees a man. Looked like he's in his 60s. He's wearing a white yarmulke, and he looks very distraught. Something's wrong. And he's at the door, the front door, and he's pulling it. He doesn't understand why it's locked. So he's trying to get in. So Reb Tzudok walked over to him, and he asked him, "Can I help you?" The man was very, very confused, very frustrated. See, he was a Russian Jew, but the Russian Jews, they spoke Yiddish. For was seien die Türen von der Schule vermacht? Why are the gates to the synagogue locked? Is heint bei Nacht nicht Yom Kippur? It's not Yom Kippur tonight. Rav Tzadok understood immediately. This fellow had made a mistake. It was off by a day. He had missed it. But he didn't want to break it to him. He just wanted to go slow. So he says, "No, what do you mean? I came here for Kol Nidrei. I want to Kol Nidrei. This shul is usually packed. There are 2,000 people here. Why are the gates locked?" He didn't have the heart to tell him. He didn't have the heart to tell him. But so he was quiet. Entfer mir! Answer me! Why are the gates locked? He's agitated, he's frantic, he's nervous. He had no choice. He says, "My dear Yidullah, I'm so sorry. Yom Kippur was last night. Kol Nidrei was last night. The gates are locked because we finished, the Yom Kippur is over and I'm going home." And the Jew broke out sobbing. Oy, 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 oy. So Tzadok asked, "Why are you sobbing?" "You don't understand. My parents barely survived the Holocaust. And they assimilated. They did not want to have anything to do with Judaism anymore, with Yiddishkeit. They suffered too much. They gave up everything. But there's one thing my father kept. He would go to the synagogue on the night of Yom Kippur. Before he died, he told me, we are an assimilated family, but we're an assimilated Jewish family. We are Jewish. And how do you know you're Jewish? When you go to the synagogue on Yom Kippur. That's how you know you're Jewish. You're connected to 4,000 years of Jewish history." And then this man looked at the Chazan. "I never missed Kol Nidrei. Not with my father, and not after my father died. My father died 20 years ago. This is the first time I've ever missed Kol Nidrei. I'm not Jewish anymore. And that's why I'm crying." So what would you do if you were Reb Tzadok? He knew exactly what he had to do. Put his hand on his shoulders. He looked the man in the eyes and he said, "Know what? You're in luck tonight. Reb Yid, don't worry. I'm the Chazan of the shul. Come in with me into the shul and together we'll do Kol Nidrei." The man said, "Really? You would do that for me?" Reb Tzadok said, "Gladly." Took him by the hand. They walked in through the side door of the shul. The night before, there were 2,000 people there. It was packed. Now, the shul is totally empty. Just the Chazan and this Yid, a Tinik Shenishba, an assimilated Jew. And he wants to hear Kol Nidrei. We walked to the Omid. I pulled up a chair next to the Omid so he could sit down. I gave him a talis. I found a machzor in Russian. They had machzorim in Russian in there, so he could follow along. I showed him where Kol Nidrei was. And I went up to the bima. I put on my kittel and my talis and the big chazan hat. I wanted the Yid to feel that he didn't miss out on Kol Nidrei. He says, now we're going to do Kol Nidrei. You, me, and God. And he starts to sing Kol Nidrei. I'm not a chazan. Kol Nidrei. As soon as Reb Tzadok's opened his mouth, it starts off with Al Das HaMakom. He was exhausted. He was tired. His voice was parched. But all of a sudden he got a supernatural second wind. He was never able to concentrate so deeply and sing with such heart as he did in this empty shul. Kol Nidrei, after Yom Kippur for this man. He felt chills. He felt chills through his body. He's the son of Holocaust survivors. He reminded himself of the 6 million Jews who went up in ashes in the crematoria. He felt that the neshamas were with us. His whole connection, it's the most amazing thing. You think about it. Kol Nidrei and Ne'ilah. This is what connects Jews all over the world. I don't understand it. Kol Nidrei has nothing to do with Yom Kippur. It's HaToras Nadarim or Mesiras Moedah.
Yeah, I don't know why people are so emotional about Kol Nidrei.
But think about it. For some reason, it's the most amazing thing.
It wasn't always Kol Nidrei, no? It was something, it used to be...
HaToras Nadarim.
No, why is that?
The Gemara brings down, it's HaToras Nadarim or maybe it's Mesiras Moedah. You're saying, whatever Nadarim I make during the year are Batal Mavutal, there's Machlekes Rishonim, Rabbeinu Tam, Kitzer. For the past year, for the future, Kitzer, it's HaToras Nadarim. That's all it is. Because you want to clear up all Nadarim before Yom Kippur. And somehow or other, this is classic. And all the old movies in the 1930s, when they started the sound movies, started all the sound movies. So the Jews, they had to get into the movie business. And they always have that cantor at Kol Nidrei, right? The cantor went off and became the jazz singer. Even Al Jolson became the jazz singer. But they have him coming back and singing Kol Nidrei. All the Jews were attached to Kol Nidrei. And everybody, when the niggin is just, it's eerie, it's spooky. The niggin will call, Ana Kol Nidrei, it's such a, it goes into your neshama. I don't understand it, but it connects all the Jews of the world somehow or other. And this Chazan Tzadok Greenwald, he felt the whole connection of a Jew. Every Jew deep down wants to be close to the Ribbono Shel Olam. Avinu Shebashamayim. Every Jew wants it. Except we have a lot of dirt in the way. We have a lot of dirt in the way. So we finished Kol Nidrei. Then he said, Shema. Explain it to him, and then he said, now we've done, you had your Kol Nidrei, now you have Yom Kippur. Now you have Yom Kippur. So the man hugged him. He hugged him tightly. He says, you saved my life. You will never understand what you did for me. Only me and God understand what you did for me. You saved my life. So Reb Tzadok said he went home. Next year he came back to the great shul of Frankfurt, and the man is sitting in the front row. And afterwards, he comes over to him. You gedenkst mir? You remember me? Sure, of course I remember you. You have no idea what you did for me. He brought a Yid back. He renewed his connection. An assimilated Jew. A child of survivors. And he brought him back. That's called Nidrei. So every year, Reb Tzadok says, he sings Kol Nidrei differently now. Kol Nidrei is different. It's different now because of that. He feels he's got all of Klal Yisrael, 4,000 years of history is wrapped up into that Kol Nidrei. Go explain it. I can't explain it. But that's the truth. But it's very, very interesting. Because Baruch Hu created the world with a hay. Why a hay? Hay doesn't have a floor. Nothing on the bottom. Olam Hazeh is very easy to fall out of. It's very easy to fall out of. Some people say it's not a question of when, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Everybody has their moments when they fall. Some people fall more, some people fall less, but they fall out. And we have to all get back in. How do you get back in? So the Gemara says you can't get back in through the same door. But you'll notice there's a little window on top. There's a little window on top. Because Baruch Hu left a little window of the hay on open so you can get back. And it takes an effort. You have to climb up, and it's a tiny little window. But we all can do it. And that's the mashal of the of Kol Nidrei in Frankfurt. This man regained his connection to Yiddishkeit through the side door. And that's what Kol Nidrei is. We go through the side door and we have Kol Nidrei. I want to wish everybody a Gemar Chasima Tova. Maybe we be inscribed in Sefer HaChaim, the Book of Life, a year of goodness, health, spiritual fulfillment, everything good. We should fulfill our tafkid, fulfill our shlichus in Olam Hazeh. We should have a relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And I wish you all a very wonderful and simcha dika Chag HaSukkos.